Greetings, Bat Family, and welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Make sure you visit our website, holybatcast.com, or find us all over social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast. You will find us. If you love the show, you want to help support us, you can do that on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. And as always, a huge thank you to our patrons. You guys make our lives that much easier, and it is appreciated. It does not go unnoticed. Thank you, guys. We are part of the Real Fans Podcast Network, so if you're looking for other shows, you can check those out at rf4rm.com. Finally, as always, I'm Andy DiGenova. You can follow me on Twitter or on Instagram. It's just my name, Andy DiGenova. In this episode, we are finally going to be reviewing Batman The Long Halloween Part 2, the animated film version, not the comic version. We did that years ago. If you want to check that out, go check it out. I was kind of interested after watching the movie to go check it out, see what we said about it. But anyway, we are going to finally finish the animated film version, the second half. And so joining me, he was not here for the first half, but he's here for the second. So between the first one and the second one, I think we're going to get everybody's opinions. It's Jamie Drewley. Hey, Jamie.
I just want to go on record as saying I'm in protest. I told Andy we had to wait till next October to do this, and he was not having it. So no, I'm here against my will.
I have a to-do list, damn it. And we're going to check things off it, because you never know what's going to happen a year from now.
That's true.
I mean, it's one of those.
Somebody could move across the globe. They could buy a house. They could have a kid.
Exactly. Depending on what this kid's like, there might not be a Holy BatCast next year. This kid takes all my time. I don't know.
They tend to do that. I will. I love my kids to death, but they are time vacuums.
Really?
Totally worth it.
I heard that once the baby is born, it's easy and much cheaper. So I'm excited about it. I'm really looking forward to that.
Because once the baby's born, you have to document and photograph every single thing the child does from then on.
Oh, okay.
Just look at Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations to Henry. He spit up for his 47th time this week. Yay, Henry!
I mean, if they were feeding me Vegemite, I'd spit up too. I don't blame
him. I mean, he is being raised on bloomin' onions and Vegemite. Anyway, yeah, so that is to say, Brendan's not joining us. It was me and Brendan for the first half of The Long Halloween, but he's busy, because kids. See? Glimpse into the future. At least your kids are now old enough that they're like somewhat self-sufficient.
They're kind of needy teenagers now, but it's true. If you give them an electronic device, they vanish.
But teenagers, isn't that when they're supposed to like not want to be with their parents?
Not my kids so much.
Oh,
they spend a lot of time in their rooms and on their phones and iPads and everything else, but they're still pretty social and want to hang out with us.
Oh, that's nice.
But we take them cool places too. I mean, we took them to Dollywood a couple of weeks ago for crying out loud.
I'm so jealous. We're thinking about trying to get there over the next month or so. A little Christmas at Dollywood.
I hear it's really spectacular. The Halloween bit down there was pretty cool, so I imagine the Christmas is even more so.
I'm sure. Anyway, thanks for being here, Jamie. We're going to talk The Long Halloween. This is, we wanted to do this on Halloween, and then I realized, I'm out of town for Halloween, so I'm going to have to do it in November. Oh, well, it happens. Also joining us, we have a special guest. So I talked about Patreon. I think he's the last one on my Patreon hit list, so I'm very excited to be checking off that to-do list. And I appreciate his patience, and that is up there in Wisconsin, pretty close to you, Jamie. It's Randy Rathermel. Hey, Randy.
Hey, Andy. Hey, Jamie. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Glad you could make it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's I've been listening for a long time, so it's pretty otherworldly that I'm here talking with you guys.
I know this is the weird experience where now you actually have to respond. You can't just listen.
I'm actually bummed because I look forward to the Holy BatCast coming out, and now I won't.
You'll have a sneak peek of what it's going to be.
That's fair. Yep.
Share with all your friends and family.
Well, sometimes Andy adds sound bites and sound effects and things like that to it. Like, the whole, everybody kept saying how they love Dick, and Andy would put like a loop thing at the end of an episode for it. I mean, you got to be careful what you say because he is vindictive about it. But there are surprises that show up.
What did I put on there, Jamie?
Oh, like when Brendan and I both said I think might have been even all three of us at some point or another. Oh, I love Dick when talking about Dick Grayson. And like I listened to the end of an episode, all of a sudden it's, I love Dick.
Well, it happens. Anyway, Randy, it's your first time on the show, so as is tradition, tell us about yourself and tell us what your favorite Batman movie is and why.
Well, like Andy said, my name is Randy, live in Wisconsin. Not going to get into too much about myself because it's not that interesting, but as far as
you
my
love Futurama,
Batman,
so you're already A-okay by us.
I did. I was telling Andy before the show started, I attempted to start a Futurama podcast until he started his and ruined my dream. So I'm here to ruin Holy BatCast.
The turnabout is fair play.
Turnabout's fair play.
Yep. Anyone who tries to start a Futurama podcast, I send an army of thugs out to them and breaks all their podcasting equipment.
My tires
Andy,
were slashed.
what it actually is, he says an army, but it's actually Andy, Brendan, and I dressed up like Mom's three sons and just slapping the hell out of each other trying to accomplish something that we never get accomplished. So.
Perfect. I live in Wisconsin with my wife, my niece, and 2 dogs. I operate a few Jimmy Johns. That's what I do for a living. And then I'm obsessed with...
I love that place. They give away free smells.
Attaboy. Get up here and line my pockets, Jamie. As far as Batman goes, my love of Batman really started when I was younger. I was born in the mid-'80s, so the animated Batman the Animated Series, when it came out, early 90s, was probably my jumping off point. Wasn't really introduced to the 89 Batman until, I was a little bit older. But then I became pretty obsessed with that. And then I got into comic books. And then when I got a little older, stopped getting into comic books because it wasn't cool. But now I'm back at it in my mid to late 30s.
Good. I'm glad we all loop back around to it. Once we realize it is cool. We get tricked.
It is cool.
Yeah, we get tricked when we're teenagers or in our early 20s to think it's not cool anymore, which was false. And then we figure out, oh, it is still cool. And then we go back to it.
Yeah, exactly. And you become this beacon for all the people around you who now realize it's cool and you know about it. So
yeah. And your favorite Batman movie?
My favorite Batman movie is probably Batman 89. There just hasn't been another Batman movie that compares to it to me. I love most of them, if not all of them, but that one just stands out. If somebody came to me and asked, what Batman movie should I watch to fall in love with Batman, it would probably be that. It doesn't take itself too seriously. Batman's a bit of a badass. And it's not too controversial, so.
That's nice. That's a good safe choice. Keaton gives beatings.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent choice. And glad that you're here. Thank you again for making the time for us this Sunday morning. Folks might not be listening on Sunday morning, but hey, there you go. That's when we're doing this. Appreciate it, and extending Halloween just a little bit into November. As the whole world is putting up Christmas, we are desperately clinging on to some taste of Halloween as we look at Batman the Long Halloween. So let's get... Well, actually, before we get to part 2, I do want to hear what you guys thought of part 1, and then we'll kick into part 2, then we'll do non-spoiler, then we'll do spoilers, and so on and so forth. So... First thing, because neither of you were on the part 1 review, I just want to hear your overall impressions of part 1. And folks listening, there might be some... I am going to give a spoiler warning for part 2, but for part 1, I think we're going to speak freely. So just be warned. I don't think part 1 is as much of an issue to be spoiled, because it's really all about the mystery and how it plays out. But just be warned in case something might get put out there. So... Part 1 of The Long Halloween, Randy, what did you think of it?
So I haven't seen it since early October, but what I remember of it, it was good. I enjoyed the character introductions. I actually liked the artwork a little bit more than I liked the comic book. I think the change in Catwoman's outfit is probably the best thing that happened in the movie. But other than that, I kind of just remember the whole, not to spoil everything right off the get-go, I guess, but the only thing I really remember is Alberto Falcone getting shot off the yacht.
Yeah.
And my impression of what was going to happen being a little tweaked.
Yeah.
But other than that, just really enjoyed the characters. The premise, I thought it was pretty close to the comic book, so I didn't really have a whole lot of things to nitpick about it. But yeah, it was good.
All right, so part 1 you liked it. You were happy with it.
Yeah, you could say that. I was happy with it.
All right, cool. Jamie, what about you? Because you had been holding off on both of these movies, but now they're both on HBO Max, so your excuses have gone away.
They have. I'm completely out of excuses, and now I've watched them, so here we go. I liked it. I didn't love it. And that's unfortunate because this story was just right to be an amazing piece, and they made some choices artistically, story-wise, to differ or expand or things like that, which is fine. I don't really have an issue with that. But I feel like ultimately, and this actually carries over to both parts for me, not just part 1, because they do have a very similar theme, vibe, feel, whatever, going through both parts for obvious reasons. I feel like they didn't follow with how the book felt, if that makes any sense. It just, they diverged too much from the ideas of the book as far as what they were focusing on for the story or the style, and they just made it a completely different thing, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But when you really like a story and they try to translate it from page to screen, be it an animated movie, a live action film, whatever, they're going to take creative liberties with it. But in this case, I unfortunately think they just went a step or two too far with the creative liberties instead of focusing more on what a lot of us fans loved about that story. Now, that's not to say they didn't make a quality film with these. They did. I liked it. It's just like a lot of the stuff with the story in the book, and I don't want to be that guy that just keeps going, well, the book this, the book that, but it's sometimes it's unavoidable. With the book, there were things that compelled me, and I was really trying to turn the page. This one, the pacing almost seemed slowed down.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And it was a stylistic choice, and it's not a bad choice. It just, I didn't roll with it. Like, it's not a choice I wish they would. I wish they would have gone a different direction. Let's put it that way. But I like the voice cast. I think Jensen Ackles does a really good job for the most part. I think, if I say his name wrong, forgive me, but Josh Duhamel, is that how it's pronounced?
That's close enough.
Okay. Well, I think he does great. I think he's the MVP. Him and Troy Baker, I think, give the two best performances in the films. There was good stuff going on. The animation style, I feel almost like, what was it, Superman Man of Tomorrow, where we were talking about how like the outlines were like a thicker black line.
Yes.
And I feel like this must have been animated by the same people, because I was noticing the shading and those lines being thicker. And I don't mind that. I think it looks pretty cool. I think the style might be my favorite thing overall about the two, because it almost feels to me, and not quite, but the best comparison I could make would be like if Darwin Cook was animating Batman the Animated Series.
Mm.
And that stylistic choice, I mean, if you're not going to go for Tim Sale's style, which would have been so hard to animate and do justice to, so I'm not mad that they didn't shoot for that. But I like the stylistic choice of how things looked, and embracing the noir and everything else. That part did feel a lot like what the book did to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the character designs are good. I think the animation is solid throughout. But I liked it. I had a little bit of disappointment overall. I mean, I guess that's where I'll put a pin in it. I wish some of the choices would not have been made that were.
Okay. Interesting. I think once we get into the to spoilers, I want to hear more about that, because I am curious as to where you felt that it went too different from the book.
Well, again, it's not even a spoiler thing. To me, a lot of it was just the pacing of it.
Okay.
Like there was it's a long book, but it's not dialogue heavy. So they had to do a lot of filling with dialogue in these.
Mm-hmm.
Because like even though that book is what 13 issues long, that series 13 issues I think it is.
Yeah.
13 times 32. I mean that's a pretty long book, but I can read that book in less time than what it takes me to read The Dark Knight Returns. That was 4 issues.
Okay.
Just the difference in character dialogue and everything else, because there's so many splash pages and just quiet moments, and I feel like this was a really quiet movie. Actually, both parts I feel like were really super quiet.
Yes.
There wasn't anything bombastic, but I feel like that was the style that they were choosing to follow from the book, in that it was quiet or smaller moments. But I don't feel like they quite got it, if that makes any sense. At least not the way my mind perceives the two ways that it was chosen to go from page to screen.
Okay. I mean, yes, I don't know if you even listened to the review of the first half with me and Brendan, but I really loved part 1, but my biggest complaint was how quiet it was. Because I do get that it was a stylistic choice, it was a creative decision, but I do feel like it was too much. There was almost no music at all, and I think that really... The movie almost kept lulling me, this is going to sound worse than it is, but to sleep. Like, it was so quiet that I just started feeling myself get drowsy, because it was just... Yeah, it wanted to be so quiet, and I was like, for me... And this is for any movie, I love movie scores. I love the way music enhances a movie-going experience. And so for a movie to go, well, we're going to do as little music as possible, that's just not to my tastes. And so I think that was what held back the first part for me more than anything. Everything else I was actually very happy with. I didn't mind the little changes they made to the story. I thought the first half was really, really good. And yeah, my only nitpick was the lack of music and how quiet they wanted to make it. Because instead of sucking you in, I felt like for me, it created more of a disconnect.
Yeah. And, we talk about Tim Sale's art. You and I, he's not our favorite, but I mean, respect the guy for doing his own thing. We had a, half an hour discussion before we got on to record here about, comics and art being what drove the comic industry from at least the mid 80s into about the early to mid 90s. But, Sale has his own style, and that's cool. And a lot of people were disappointed that they chose not to emulate his style more with this. And I get where you're coming from, but that's a difficult thing to do and maintain justice to what that art should look like. So if you're not going to do it, quote, right, don't do it at all. Just do what you know how to do and do it in your own style. I think that's fine. I don't have an issue there. What I think is kind of weird here is, and this is probably a weird thing to make, and this isn't even necessarily a criticism, the sounds in this film are what they tried to go bigger with. Like, there are these small sounds that you wouldn't even hear. Like, if you're ever around somebody that's smoking a cigarette, you can't hear that paper burn back in the cigarette when somebody takes a drag off of it. Not unless your ear is right up next to their face an inch away. Then maybe you'll hear it, but not when you're 3 feet away, you don't hear it. But you could hear every time it happens on screen there. So they made weird stylistic choices to make sound stand out more.
Yeah. That's fair. All right. So I want to get to part 2. So Randy, it sounds like you really liked part 1. Jamie, it sounds like you liked it, but not as much as you wanted to. Some of the choices held you back. But I want to get to part 2 since we already did cover part 1 in detail. So let's do that. Without further ado, let's take a look at Batman The Long Halloween part 2. Now this one came out, when did it come out? I want to say August, something like that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, something like that. It's been out a few months. And we did want to save it till everyone had a chance, but now that it's on HBO Max, it makes it that much easier for anybody who, like Jamie, had been waiting or holding off. Now you guys can watch it very easily and check these out. So I want to start spoiler free, and then we will get into spoilers. So spoiler free, Randy, what were your thoughts about part 2?
Part 2, to me, very similar vibe to the part 1. to reiterate a little bit what Jamie was talking about in part one, the pacing, it has a lot to do with that score or lack of score. It doesn't help scenes move along in a way that you expect these, especially animated shows that usually move quick. This just was a little slow paced. It felt like they were slowly turning the page on the comic book. But I thought part two was actually paced a little bit better than part one. But there was a little bit more to do in part two, I think, as well. Again, I liked all the characters in part two. A highlight for me is Calendar Man. I really liked David Dastmalchian. His portrayal of that guy is this like Hannibal Lecter kind of person they're going to figure out what's going on. He's the expert in serial killers on holidays. So really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed Jensen Ackles in this one, and Josh Duhamel, whatever his name is. When
Mr.
we get
Fergie.
the turn,
Just call him Mr. Fergie.
there you go. As soon as he makes the switch in this part, his demeanor really changes, his voice really changes, and I thought that was pretty cool of him for somebody that's not, necessarily a voice actor. I think he did a really good job.
Nice. Jamie, spoiler free.
Very much same feelings I carried about one for the most part. There was one character that I feel was underserved. I mean, it's not even a spoiler. Ivy, I don't feel like she was there to accomplish this particular goal, but like as a character herself, I don't feel like she got a thing to do. And a couple of the other ones that were more or less glorified cameos, like Penguin, they just not doing anything except making appearances with characters that we already know who they are for fans, whatever. Like if somebody's watching these and they don't know Ivy or Penguin, I mean, what are these characters doing here? I wish they would have had more to do for them, but I digress. I really, really like Harvey's descent as it amplifies in this second one. That could be the highlight of this second part to me, is the performance given by Josh, Mr. Fergie. I think
D.
was really good here. Yeah, that dude, Josh, JD. Yeah. Great performance. I really liked it a lot. The courtroom bit there was really solid. Very true to form with the Harvey Dent origin, I think, and I like how that played out. I do still think that there's a little bit of the issues of choice varying here, and again, not bad choices, just not ones that I wish would have been made. Like there's been a couple instances where they've made some choices with other films that like Gotham by Gaslight, like they did a lot of changes from the book to the movie there. And for the most part, I really felt like those choices were improvements over the initial story, or at least lateral moves at the very least. Here, I just don't feel that way. And that's unfortunate on my behalf, but if it worked better for somebody else than me, great. I have other things I can watch that don't necessarily disappoint me. The second part, and I watched the first part last night, and I watched the second part this morning. In fact, I just finished it about 10 minutes before we got on the horn here. This is going to sound way harsher than I intended, but me not being the eloquent wordsmith that I should be to do a Batman podcast, forgive me for saying it this way. Please don't take it wrong, but I feel like they got a little bit disjointed here, and they didn't focus as much actually on the holidays themselves, which I know probably isn't the focal point of what the story should be telling. But like the first one, I feel like there was a deliberate focus on at least some of the holidays, particularly after, any of the murders happened. The second part, I feel like that just went out the door.
Yeah.
Like there was barely an acknowledgement other than stuff that was going on in the background. And I felt like that was a little bit of a miss. But I think Catwoman was great in this, and y'all know me. I'm not a big
guys,
but
it just went on tape. You said something nice about Catwoman.
I did.
It's now on the record.
I think her character in the first one, I thought she was fine. Not a heavy dose of her in the first part. In the second part, I really feel like she had some really good moments, and I liked it a lot. And God, I'm gonna feel so bad. Naya Rivera, is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
I got it right. I think she did a very nice job in that part. And I know the tragedy that went down, and it's very sad, and I'm so sorry for her and her family that happened. But that young woman turned in a very nice performance in this part, and I want to give acknowledgement there, because I do, not being a big Catwoman fan, for me to say something nice, it's not something that happens often. But regardless of circumstances surrounding what happened with her, I think she did a great job with this.
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
And I also think, and again, it's going to probably sound way harsher than I'm intending it to. I think they spent too much time focusing on the mobsters. Like, I know they're an important part of this story, and it's significant, but it's like, I'm watching a Batman movie because I want more Batman, and Batman is there. I'm not going to say they shorted me on a dose of Batman, but it's like, there was so much time spent with these mobsters, and I feel like a lot of it was just spinning wheels and not delivering what I wanted more of, which I guess comes down to entertainment value. And again, it's not a bad story. It's not a bad movie. I would probably watch both parts again with very minimal fuss, but there are also 50 other things that I would choose to watch before this, because this one simply didn't pack the punch, so to speak, that I'm looking for when I watch a comic book movie or story. Andy, I imagine what I'm saying here is much how you feel about year one. It's a little dry for my taste.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, so if you go back and you listen to the review of part one, I really, really liked it. And again, I think my biggest nitpick was about how darn quiet it is. What's funny is I lent both of these to Michael Lyons for Scarathon. I was like, oh, Michael shares our affinity for all holidays, and I was like, hey, these are actually really good. I think they're worth watching. And so we watched them both. And I didn't give him my review or anything, but he goes, yeah, like a lot of times it feels like a silent movie. I'm like, yes, that's my biggest complaint. Other than that, I really liked part one. But coming out of part one, I was like, okay, first of all, I'm surprised they only got through New Year's in part one. And so that means there's a lot of extra work that part two has to do, because they didn't even get halfway. So that was a concern coming into part two. And then the other concern was, I was like, I just have to see how they wrap it all up. I've got to see if they stick the landing, because that's really going to determine how I feel about the whole thing. So that is to say, I like part two, but I don't think I like it as much as part one. I don't think they quite stick the landing. I think it's okay. I think what they do is okay. I think it's not great. And that holds it back a little bit for me. And what you said, Jamie, that bugged me is that after St. Patrick's Day, they completely abandon marking the holidays, which is such a weird choice considering that's the whole format of the story of the book and now of the movie. And so I guess it would be halfway through, they're like, we're going to acknowledge that they happened, but we're no longer going to have those moments that are so iconic in the book with, when each murder happens, the name of the holiday and the little trinket that goes with it is like, oh, we're going to stop really focusing on those. It's like, why? You've already set the template of that's the format of this story. Why would you abandon that? That's so strange. I think I agree with both of you guys in that Harvey Dent is probably the best part. I think Josh Duhamel I say Duhamel. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's right. Maybe that's wrong. But I think he's great. I think Jensen Ackles is great, and I definitely echo your sentiments about Catwoman, Jamie. She's great. I love her character in this. I love the way she plays into the story. I love that she's always there to back up Batman whenever it's needed. It's like, I don't know. I really like it. And then Naya Rivera is amazing. And again, I mean, I think we said that before. It's so tragic what happened to her, but I'm so grateful that she got to play Catwoman. She's great in it. And now we have this, at least, this little piece of her, this great performance before she left us way too young. So I like the movie a lot. And watching it last night, I enjoyed it. But there are just some choices they make. And I can't even quite wrap my head around the rationale of changing it. And I think it's just, it feels like maybe they feel damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like, well, if we don't change it and we just do the book, then what's the point? And then everybody knows what's going to happen, because that was the complaint about the year one animated movie.
That's exactly the reason they made the choice. Everybody that watched this movie, for the most part, has read the book. So how is it a mystery to them if they follow step by step? So I understand the logic behind that choice, agree with it or not.
Yeah. So, but then if they change it, then there are those people who are like, well, it was better in the book. Why would you change that? So they are stuck in a really tough spot. And so I sympathize with that, but at the same time, I'm like, well, but if the book already nailed it, then maybe just own that, I feel like The Dark Knight Returns is such a great animated movie, and they didn't change anything that I can think of. They didn't change anything really huge in that.
The most significant change there was just adding more to the Superman-Batman fight at the end.
Okay.
But in defense of the crew that worked on this, that story is not predicated on a mystery of a whodunit or anything like that.
That's true.
I understand why the choice was made, for better or for worse. I get it. And I actually kind of like the idea. I mean, minor spoilers, if you haven't seen part one, plug your ears for 5 seconds. I like the choice of killing the original killer from the book at the end of part one, which throws everybody for a loop of, okay, now we're in the stuff because we were with Batman and that we knew who did it. But now who did it? Because obviously it wasn't him.
Yeah.
And that was a very definitive, he ain't coming back. He ain't going to be, I think it was even you that said that on the episode, didn't you? He ain't going to be in Rush Hour 3.
Right. Yep.
Didn't you say that?
Yep.
Yeah. He's toast. I mean, they went out of their way to say, look what we did, and this ain't a trick this time.
Right.
Yeah, that was intentional.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I did like that. And I was like, oh, damn. Like, cause they leave no question, and so it really does, especially for those of us who know where it's going. Well, then how is this going to work? And I think that was my big question. It was like, oh, they better nail the ending. So we'll get into that in spoilers. I do like it. There are some moments that I think that are underplayed, which I also thought was an odd choice, especially when you're doing a movie. You can make moments more cinematic, and a lot of those moments that are so good in the book, like those splash pages in the book, like you were mentioning, Jamie, they're so iconic, they're so great. You have the choice when you're making a movie to either ignore them or to make them a big moment in the book or in the movie. And they kind of chose to ignore them, which I thought was an odd choice too, where I'm like, oh man, like there's some really iconic moments with Batman and the villains throughout the book that should also be big moments in the movie. And a lot of times they choose not to. And I'm not sure why that is. So
big shout out to the crew that made part one. I mean, I think it's the same people that did
I'm sure it's
parts,
the same people. I mean,
yeah. They did keep basically what was essentially my favorite thing from the whole story. And that was Batman bringing Grundy the plate.
Yeah.
Like if that hadn't been there, I'd have been pretty sad, but it was. So, points to them for keeping something that I thought was a really good, heartfelt moment.
Yeah, agreed. And I guess I'm sounding more down on it than I actually am, because I do really like it. I'm happy to watch it again in the future. It was a very easy watch last night. It's just, I guess it's one of those things where it's more frustrating because it was like this close to being great and they just didn't quite get there. Because as it is, it's really good. As we said, the cast is good. I love this animation style. I have no problem with it whatsoever. I do know that there are some purists who are like, oh, they didn't even try to do Tim Sale. And I do get that. I don't even disagree with that. But I also understand why you don't try. Why it's like, well, they chose to do it in this style. And I think this style works great for this movie. I think the animation is great in this movie.
Well, again, I have to address that idea. You want people to emulate Tim Sale's style, but if they try to do it and it looks ugly or doesn't pan out the way you want it to, I think people are madder about that than not trying it at all to begin with. I do genuinely believe they were dodging that bullet by not even being in front of the gun, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, they were, damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. But as someone who doesn't love Tim Sale's art anyway, for me, it's no big loss. But for the people who love it, I also understand why they were like, well, come on, you could have done something a little closer. So I get all that. So anyway,
well, the thing that Sale exaggerates so much is mostly the character designs themselves. And frankly, I think the character designs in this are really strong. I think Scarecrow, Joker, Grundy, Ivy, Catwoman, I think they all look really good.
I agree.
Character choices aside. So I don't have the issue that they made the change they made stylistically for the appearances.
Right.
Anyway.
I completely agree with that. I think all the characters look great in this. I really do. I mean, Batman looks awesome. And I love the way the Joker and the Scarecrow and Two-Face and Ivy and Catwoman, I think they all look great too. So I have no complaints about the designs, the animation, all that's really good. This one I felt like the music thing was a little less of an issue than the first part. I feel like there was a little more to it, but it was the same sort of thing where I was like, oh, like some of these scenes could be a lot more exciting and a lot more dramatic if you just lean into the music. But again, that might just be a personal preference. So all that is to say, I do really like it. I don't like it quite as much as the first part, and I think I have more nitpicks about the second part, which we can talk about more freely in spoilers.
I really wish I had an opportunity, and it's my own fault for procrastinating and rewatching Game of Thrones and trying to get caught up on Titans and watching Squid Game with my entire family and all these other things that are going on in life right now. So I only had the chance to watch each one once, and I usually give a fairer or better opinion when I have a chance to watch them twice. So if I sound like I'm coming off harsher than I want to, it's probably because I just didn't have the chance to flesh it out as much as I normally like to before giving these reviews. But it also, again, please understand, I liked both parts. I just didn't quite love either.
All right. Well, let's get into spoilers. So anybody who has not watched the movie, it is different than the book. So be warned for that. But we are going to speak freely. So if you have not watched them, both parts are on HBO Max. Makes it nice and easy for you because we are going to speak spoilers. So the spoiler warning is in effect in 3, 2, 1.
Randy, please go first, because if you don't, I'm going straight to the end.
Well, I'm probably gonna head there too, but as far as spoilers go, I mean that's really the only thing that you got to be concerned about is the end, right?
And it's the biggest thing, yeah.
Yeah, going into part 2, I mean Alberto Falcone is shredded by a yacht propeller, so you obviously know the spoiler is that he's not the holiday killer. I haven't read The Long Halloween in a long time, probably 10 years. The only reference that I have for it is when you guys did your Long Halloween review. So I can't really compare the two at this point, but Andy, you mentioned something about the score not being as big of a deal in the second one. I actually kind of felt the opposite. I thought that the dramatic scenes in this one kind of would have lent itself a little bit better to a solid score, a little bit more music. The Scarecrow scenes, which I think were probably one of my favorite parts of this movie, would have been just a little bit more daunting and scary and I don't know, a little bit more memorable. As much as I liked them. No, I mean, and
I completely agree with you. I feel that way about the whole movie, is that if they'd have leaned into the music more in multiple parts or in multiple scenes in both parts, I think for me the movie would be better. I just felt like there was just a little more music in part 2 than in part 1, but I did not watch them back to back, so maybe that's also just selective memory.
Sure, yeah, me either. I do remember that. Yeah, there must have been like a ball scene or something like that in the movie, and some music was started playing. I'm like, well, I popped up a little bit because, like, oh, there's sound.
Yeah.
But I'm like, guess nitpicks aside, I thought that this was generally pretty accurate to the comic book, so I'm not going to give too many complaints there. My favorite part is the Batman approaching Gilda at the end, and then having their little chit chat. I have a little debate as to whether or not Batman should have walked away and let her get away with it. But
Yep. I feel the same way.
I'm not ready to have that discussion yet, boys.
Okay, that's fair. I can talk about it when you're ready. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I don't have too many harsh opinions other than that.
Yeah. So we'll go back to something that we mentioned real quick, because I thought it was such an odd choice in that they just stopped doing marking the holidays, which was so weird, because again, that was so consistent in the first half, and then in this one, it happens for the first couple, and then they were like, we're bored with that, which I thought was so strange
weird that they did that.
Yeah.
I said the second part felt a little bit more disjointed for me. That's why, because even though it's telling the same story and clearly done by the same people and cast and everything else, it doesn't quite fit the motif, and that it does just completely walk away from this idea that, to me, helps keep the story so centered in how the story's originally presented.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you set up that format, it's so odd. I also think that, coming out of part 1, I was like, oh wow, it only went to New Year's. Interesting. They have a lot of ground to cover in part 2. And then the fact that part 2 is like, oh, we're going to speed through the first couple months real quick, in a little montage. I was like, oh, I don't hate it, because I do feel like, because there's so much to the story, there is a certain point where you do have to hit the fast forward button to get everything in. But I just thought that was an interesting choice, especially to kick off part 2, where, we're barely back in it, and they're like, and that's Valentine's Day, and that's St. Patrick's Day, and now we're on April Fool's Day. And yeah, I don't want to be one of those fans who's like, oh, well, you cut this out, because you're going to have to cut out something. But I did miss the Riddler sequence from April Fool's Day, where the murder on April Fool's Day is that there is no murder. And I always thought that was really cool from the book. And the fact that they just completely didn't even acknowledge it, I was like, oh, that's too bad, because they probably could have, because there are so many other prolonged, slower scenes. I feel like you could have still fit it in there.
Okay, you said that something has to be cut, and in most cases I'm going to agree with you, except for in this one, because they added so much of their own flavor to this story. There was no reason to cut anything else out in order to make all of these be linear and fit the same motif. And even if you shortened down the presentation of it, you still had room in 3 hours to get through 12 or 13 holidays.
Yeah. And I also,
but you had to give up a little. You had to give up a little bit of what you wanted to change in order to keep that pacing or idea present.
Yeah.
And that they clearly chose not to do that. And that, what, they're a creative team. They made that choice. If that's the choice they wanted to make and they're comfortable with, more power to them. But it's one that I don't agree with or like as much as I could have.
Well, and to your point, there's some very long scenes with Falcone and Maroni and some of those that there is important information in there, so you can't lose the scene completely, but also those scenes feel pretty long. There was probably
pacing
a way
them better would have went a long way to fitting more stuff around it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that what they were saying wasn't important to the story or the characters. What I am saying is it didn't have to be as frequent or as long as it was to get the points across. But I will give credit, absolutely give credit in one department. I think the character's name, and I'm terrible with names and remembering things because I'm getting old and forgetful, but Sophia Falcone, the large brunette woman.
Yeah.
Okay. I sort of like her character in the book, but she comes off like really gruff and harsh. And in this movie, they chose to make her a little bit more, she's still there, but like she's more of a sympathetic character. And to me, that is the one character improvement that I definitely think was made from page to screen, is what they did with her. Because when she went bye-bye, I was sad about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I love her character. I like her character from the book, but I do think she's even better in the movie. I agree with that.
And there's another one of those moments. I'm sorry, go ahead.
She's definitely less hard ass in the movie.
Yeah,
she has a lot of more of a softer side to her, and it is an emotional scene.
But she's still super tough though, and I appreciate that. Yep. But she's not like, I don't know how to say it. She's softened up some, but not to. I think it's to the character's benefit, not detriment, in the way that they did it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I thought she was great. And it was one of the things where
the moment though when she has that impact. First of all, the fact that she's letting go to save Catwoman's life instead of killing them both, I thought, wow, that's really something. Like that tugged on a little bit of a heartstring there, that she's like, well, there's no reason for both of us to go, and just letting go. And then she makes the impact on the hood of that cop car, and they go down there and they start panning up, and you hear the lights of the cop car clicking as they alternate back and forth between red and blue. Mm-hmm. That's another one of those moments where I think they're hyper stylizing the sounds that you just simply wouldn't normally hear without tremendous focus of trying to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like these small, insignificant seeming background noises are really brought to the forefront in here. And that's just it's an interesting creative choice. I don't have a problem with it. It's just different, I guess, is the way I'll put it.
Mm-hmm. So I was also going to point out that, like, I mean, we're in the spoilers, so we know Gilda is Holiday. And in the book, Gilda is also Holiday, at least some of the time. But I do feel like the movie overall just spends so much time on Gilda. And I don't know if that is such a red flag because I already know where it's going. And so for me, it just feels like you're overplaying your hand, where I'm like, there is no reason this movie would be spending so much time on Gilda Dent if she wasn't the killer. So to me, it just feels like so much of her, and I feel like it's even more than in the book. And maybe that's one of the criticisms of the book. Maybe that I'm unaware of is, oh, well, you know, we expect Gilda to be the killer, and she's not all that important till the end. And so the movies maybe overcompensating because we're checking in with Gilda more than we're checking in with Batman sometimes. There's just so much.
I don't think that's incorrect. I don't think I disagree with that at all.
So I don't know. And again, maybe it's just because I know how it ends that it's more apparent to me. Maybe someone on the first time wouldn't think twice about it, but I'm like, man, you really want to make sure we know what Gilda's up to at all times.
This is the part that's going to get me really in trouble with this movie. I'll just go ahead and get it out of the way. I have no, discernible writing talent whatsoever. So for me to criticize somebody about this, I oftentimes feel bad about it. But as a fan and a viewer and somebody that, you know, I didn't pay specifically for these movies, but I do pay $15 a month to HBO to watch the content that I have on there. So I'm giving money for this content. So I feel like I have some measure of being able to offer an opinion without feeling too guilty about it here. When somebody is doing a mystery, it's a really difficult thing because a lot of people, when they're presenting mysteries, they either make no effort to sway you away from a guilty party at all, or they try so hard to go away from this person and specifically focus on another character that the choice obviously has to be the one that they're getting away from. I mean, I've seen a couple of movies in my time where an example I'll give, I really didn't like this movie. I'm not even sure I can remember what it's called, but there was a movie with Pacino and De Niro and Carla Gugino and The Right Wrong or something. Hell, I can't even remember what it was called. It was about 10 years ago. And they went so far out of their way to convince you that there's really only two choices of who this guilty party could have been in this movie. And this movie went so far out of its way to convince you that it was one, that you had no other choice but to believe it had to be the other one. And guess what? That's exactly what happened at the end. This, I feel like they just didn't quite have enough behind how many guilty parties there could have been to convince you that it wasn't her by the time it was all said and done.
Yeah.
Frankly, I didn't even remember her involvement for it in the book because I haven't read the book since we did the review of it. So all I kept thinking to myself was, they're going so far out of their way to convince you that it has to be Harvey, that it has to be somebody else. And the only person left that really makes sense is his wife, because she's so emotionally distraught. I mean, that's where my brain went. I'm not a sleuth. I'm not Sherlock Holmes. I'm not Batman, as much as I'd like to be. I should not be able to figure this out. I'm not a super intelligent, really good mystery solving person, but I always feel a little bit disappointed when I have something like this figured out before it's revealed to me, because it takes away that element of surprise, which is fairly important in a story that's trying to surprise you with something. And then the way that Batman handles it, I did not get into at all. And I know I'll let things slide of, I'm not as bad about Batman killing as a lot of people are. I'm not dead set against it, just depending on how the story's told. I do have a little bit of a problem with Batman just letting her get away scot-free with this because she said she was finished. Mm-hmm. That seems just too uncharacteristic for Batman to let that slide. Mm-hmm. I didn't care for that choice at all.
Mm-hmm. Randy sounded like, yeah, go ahead.
I mentioned something earlier, and that's my biggest hiccup in this whole thing. You know, I was waiting for Batman to walk up the stairs, and like Gordon would be up there waiting or something like that, and they just didn't give us anything there, and it's just like, it's not like Batman's giving this gruntled housewife a pass because she did something bad. I mean, she committed these murders, she had this plan, she should be taken away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Batman would do that.
Yeah. I mean, if he offers her sympathy to the point of letting her go, why wouldn't he do that for somebody like Freeze? Like Mr. Freeze is stealing all this money to try and cure this terrible disease of his wife and save her life. Why would Batman not offer the same sympathy to him that he would to Gilda in this moment? Is it some obligation because Batman was friends with Harvey that he's going to let his wife get away with it? That feels a little hypocritical for Batman. To me, it feels entirely uncharacteristic for him not to make her pay for these crimes in some fashion or another, whether he wants to or not. If you're going to give me an internal conflict of Batman not wanting to do it but feeling compelled by duty to do it, that's okay. But to just let her walk away scot-free after killing these people? No, I'm sorry. I can't roll with that choice.
Yeah. So first I want to talk about what you mentioned. Just, I do think that is, I mean, there is a trickiness to doing a mystery where the answer has to be, it has to make sense. And that character has to be, has to be important enough to be when the reveal happens, you go, oh, okay, that all checks out, but it can't be too obvious. And so to your point, I feel like there aren't enough suspects, because really the suspects are the answer in the book. The suspects are Alberto, Harvey, and Gilda. Really, I don't think there's really anyone else who they point the finger at. And in the book, the answer is all of the above, maybe, because in the book, it's not super clear who did what when. And I also think that is another reason they maybe changed the ending here, is because the book, it leaves up a lot up in the air. There's a lot of ambiguity. It's like sometimes it was Alberto, sometimes it might have been Harvey, and then sometimes it was definitely Gilda. So where does one stop and the other start? We're not really sure when the book ends. And I do wonder if the filmmakers were like, well, that's not very satisfying for a mystery. People want to have their patience rewarded and they want the answer. So let's take that ambiguity of those three players from the book and define it, make it a little clearer how it all worked. And so they kind of gave us an answer using what the answer was in the book, but just something that was a little cleaner and not ambiguous. You now know why everything happened and who did what. But because those are the only three suspects and they kill Alberto unmistakably in the first part, and throughout this, and again, I'm only coming it from having read the book, it's like I never feel like Harvey is a real suspect because we know he's going down the Two-Face route, and so that does only leave Gilda as the only the option. And the fact that, again, the movie keeps going back to her, I would think that you would just go, oh, well, then who else is it going to be? Is it going to be any? There's no other options at that point. So I do think that is part of the struggle. And then in the ending, I do agree with both of you in that Batman can sympathize with what she did and why she did it. But at the end of the day, he's not one to just let you go, to just still say, well, that's okay. it's fine, just don't do it again. Like, that's just not something that's ever happened. Because to your point, there are a lot of sympathetic villains in Batman's world. He doesn't give any of them a pass because at the end of the day, they still have to be held responsible. So the whole ending, I don't necessarily mind how they decided how it went down. I still think I think it's a little weird to go, oh, Gilda and Alberto had this torrid romance years ago, and now she's getting revenge because she got thrown away by the like. It's a bit of a stretch. I think they do a pretty good job of writing it, so that way it doesn't feel like as big of a stretch. But it's something of one, because you're like, really, Harvey Dent's wife and Alberto had this torrid romance. Okay, maybe.
Well, I went with that. I was on board with that up until I got mad about Batman just walking back up the stairs without her and a pair of bat cups.
Yeah.
I was rolling with that. I liked what they were presenting to me in that moment, but it just completely lost me in how everything was capped off.
I agree with Andy.
Yeah.
He said, I just don't think she had the resources. I don't think she had the training. Where are those breadcrumbs and stuff like that, to make us think that she's capable of this.
Right.
She's one hell of a shot with a .22 pistol, I can tell you that.
Obviously.
Shooting people from 40, 50 yards away with a single shot and a pistol on kill shots, that's world caliber class there.
This is true. Yeah, I mean, the fact that she's that good and can outrun Batman and all these other, trained professionals, police officers and everything it's all impressive, but okay, sure, whatever, we'll go with it.
You have to have a level of suspension of disbelief when you watch stuff like this, because some of it's going to be exaggerated. Like, maybe that shot literally took place from 15 yards away instead of 50.
Yeah.
But, just because of the way it was drawn or stylized or whatever, it seems further away. Or you have to be able to let some of that stuff go. At some point, I reach a point where I'm just like, I've had enough of this and I can't. But I never quite got there with this, but another sequence or two like that probably would have just pushed me over an edge with it.
Yeah. And there's some nice moments to help defend that ending. Like I like the moment where Harvey realizes it was Gilda, excuse me, and immediately starts defending Holiday. Like, I really like that. I think that's actually really cool. And the way that Harvey then takes credit for all the killings, again, to help protect her. Like, I think that stuff is actually pretty well done. But to go back to the way it ends is like the thing to me that I felt like was actually very smart in selling this tenuous connection between Alberto Falcone and Gilda Dent is when she says, I came to Gotham and married the one man who might be able to bring them to justice. So that I thought was actually a really smart story point to go, okay, it's not that she just happened to be married to Harvey Dent and she's also got this grudge against the Falcones. She sought out Harvey Dent and made it her mission to marry him because he's the only one who could help her bring the Falcones to justice. And I was like, okay, that helps sell what could otherwise be tough to buy.
And in the process, truly fell in love, which, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Again, none of that really bothered me with, her past and present with what went on there. I think that was decent writing. I think I've seen a lot worse. I've seen a lot better, but I think that was good, solid, and I went along with it.
Yeah.
I got derailed because of what happened after the fact.
Right.
Like when she's telling the story about the father not allowing this to happen and annulled the marriage and ripped the baby from her womb and in the process broke her. I mean, that I felt that moment. You know what I'm saying? That was good, solid emotional conveyance there for me anyway. I can't speak for you guys, but for me, I think that was strong and I liked it.
Yeah.
It was powerful imagery, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I do also like the poetic justice of, it was always such an odd detail that they used baby bottle nipples as silencers.
Oh.
And in this version, because she's not only getting justice for herself, but also her unborn child, I like the idea of the baby bottle sort of being a signifier of that.
Frankly, I never pieced that together till you just said it. So thank you for that.
I was about to say, I feel dumb now that I didn't piece that together.
Yeah, I thought that was actually quite clever because in the book it's sort of random, but here I like thematically what it's saying. But then I do have to agree again with you guys. I do think what really hurts this scene is I think it almost would have been again maybe I'm as I'm saying it I don't know if I believe this, but would it have been better for Batman not to realize it was Gilda so she does get away with it? And to show that, yeah, the good guys won, but sometimes Batman doesn't have all the answers, because I like how when the story ends, both in the book and here, where they're like, yeah, the good guys won, but we're not sure it was worth it because of everything we gave up in the process, including Harvey Dent. I like that uneasiness of the ending of like, we won, but did we? And I think that's actually really nice. And I think that might have even reinforced that of like, they think they won, but it turns out they didn't even catch the real killer. But that if you play that the wrong way, it could almost make Batman look stupid. So you don't want to do that either. But
I think that would have been dangerous ground to tread with him because he already made the mistake of assuming it was Alberto and being wrong there.
Yeah.
I don't think fans would have had any acceptance in the world for him not getting it figured out by the end after that.
Right. But again, because then now you're dealing with him going, okay, no harm, no foul. Take care, Gilda. So again, tough call, but it is just odd because yeah, for anyone else, Batman would be like, yeah, I know what you're going through. I appreciate that, but you're still going in.
Well, I mean, you keep saying the term "damned if you do, damned if you don't," and that's just sprinkled throughout this whole thing. In that they had the opportunity to say, well, we just went with what was in the book. If you didn't like it, blame Jeff Loeb.
Yeah.
But they decided that they wanted to try their own thing and take that risk. And, there's nothing wrong with taking a risk, hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, I don't feel like some of the right choices were made in the changes that were opted to go with.
Yeah, for sure.
But I credit them for trying. I mean, I feel like I'm sounding so harsh about this and then I'm battering this movie, and I don't want to batter it. I mean, they put together a quality piece, even if I don't agree with some of the choices. I'd like to sit down with a couple of the writers and whatnot and say, hey, man, why did we go here? Like, yeah. I feel like they could probably explain better and give me a better understanding and appreciation, which is, again, why I say I wish I had a chance to watch these a second time. Mm-hmm. And maybe I can pick up on more of that. But, I mean, Andy, you watched each of them twice now, right?
Yeah, at least.
It doesn't sound like it helped you all that much through a couple of the things anyway.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I feel like usually the second viewing helps. And this time I feel like the first time I was a little more willing to go with it and be like, yeah, okay, great. You did your own thing. And the second time is where I started asking more questions. So this was the rare occasion where I do think that, yeah, the more I dug into it, the more the less it sat well with me. But again, that is all to say, it's just like you were saying, is like, we sound harsher than we are, because I still really liked it. And I do appreciate that with the ending, they took what was in the book and just reconfigured it a little bit to make it a clearer answer. And that was something that I think it was Tim Sheridan, who's the writer. I think he said this on Twitter, is he goes, the ending of the book is an ink blot. You can read it many different ways. And so it's super unclear. And so this is their interpretation of what that ink blot is. And so when you look at it that way, I think it works better.
Fair enough. But, some other people decided to be a little bit more definitive on a more open-ended choice with the presentation of the ending of Killing Joke, and look how that worked out.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that the movie would have fared a little bit better. Mysteries need these breadcrumbs that lead you to the real killer, and they need the red herrings that throw you off the trail. And I think this movie had plenty of breadcrumbs leading up to Gilda, but not enough red herrings to throw us off of her. So when the breadcrumbs ultimately led to Gilda, we were like, well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so, no, it's true. I feel like Alberto was the only real red herring. And because they dispatch him at the end of part 1, in part 2, there really aren't others.
And that's
Exactly.
kind of it. You know, they made the choice to not have Alberto be the primary, which I'm fine with. But if you didn't have a really good, solid reason for doing that other than trying to make a new mystery for people who were familiar with the story, you should have just kept it.
Right.
Like Andy was saying earlier.
Yeah. So
If you can't improve upon it, just leave it alone.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a much simpler way of saying all those words I just said.
I mentioned earlier, and I just wanted to point them out specifically, is there are just moments in the book that are so iconic that I feel like the movie doesn't take full advantage of. And the biggest one that drove me nuts, and I'm still frustrated by it, is the moment when at the Falcones, they go into the office and all the villains are there waiting for them. And they say, I think it's trick or treat. I'm like, how do you not do that moment in your Long Halloween movie? It's like one of the most iconic moments in the book. Do it. And it's like they threw away the trick or treat line when Two-Face invades Arkham, which I do like that scene, but like, why throw it away there when you could have done it with the entire Rogues Gallery at the Falcones later? Because that's such an amazing moment. Like, why wouldn't you lean into that?
What fan reading that book doesn't turn to that double splash page and go, I need this hanging on my wall?
Exactly. Like, I have it as wallpaper during October because I love it so much. It's such a great moment, and they were just like, nah, we're not going to do it. Weird.
I want to give credit while I'm thinking about it because you brought up trick or treat, and it reminded me how Alfred keeps decorating the house and
I
leaving
love
the
it.
gates open.
Yeah,
and
love
the big choco chunk candy bars or whatever they are, and he's hopeful that somebody's going to show up to the door, and Bruce is like, you know, it's hopeless, don't bother. And then, you know, it kind of ends on the family that comes up to the door with the little kid dressed in the Batman costume, and Catwoman telling Bruce, you're adorable when you're wrong, or something to that effect. I don't remember the exact words, but
That's correct.
that whole bit was wonderful. I love that. And even though the post-credit scene makes about 0 sense, I still got a chuckle out of it.
Yeah, same.
Well, I'm curious as to where they're going next that will pay off from that post-credit scene, because this is very much the same style as Superman Man of Tomorrow and then Justice Society, which I still have not watched.
I haven't either.
It's so weird for that. Like, there have been multiple movies that have come out since then, and that one still won't go on sale and still won't be on HBO Max. And I'm like, what is with that one that they're holding it back? It's so bizarre.
I have no idea, but I really want to see that one, but I don't want to pay out 15 or 20 bucks for a movie that I haven't seen yet.
Same.
I'm spoiled.
But I do wonder if you know, because seems to be set in this new continuity, or at least it's this new style. So I am curious as to how they want to pay off that post-credit scene.
Right.
Well, I mean, if I want to get nitpicky, and I don't because I enjoyed it, why are they coming to Bruce Wayne's front door dressed in full costume? I get that it's Halloween and you could probably get away with it, but it doesn't make sense why they're doing that instead of coming to the cave if they're there to enlist the help of Batman on whatever mission they're going on now. At the same time, the fact that Alfred just kind of rolls his eyes and says it's for you, and it was funny. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, it doesn't have to make sense yet. It's however they pay it off later. You know, that's when they get the chance to make sense of it.
Well, I mean, the part that doesn't make sense is why they're going to that door instead of the back door, if you saw what I'm saying. You know?
Right. I mean, maybe we'll find out, but I dug it.
I guess.
And then to go back to what I was saying, the other moment that I love so much, it's another one of my October wallpapers, is the Scarecrow's escape from Arkham when he's on the horse. And they do the moment, but it's also just not as cool as it could have been, you know, of him like with Arkham in the background and like the horse rears up and it's just this great splash page in the comic. Here you get the moment, but it's just, again, like, why would you not pull the camera out, give us the big splash page, and then like have a strike of lightning in the back while he's rearing up on the horse in slow-mo? It's like, these are pretty easy things to do to like make, to really celebrate those iconic moments from the book. They do it in Dark Knight Returns. Sorry to keep going back, but like in the Dark Knight Returns, when Batman's jumping through the air and it's the cover of the book, they take a moment to slow it down and to go, oh, hell yeah. they
It's
should have
like
done
one
the
and
same
a half
thing here.
seconds, but it's there.
Yeah, they should have done the same thing here.
Well, I did like to kind of piggyback off what you're saying. I did like that sequence because it kind of had a little Sleepy Hollow feel. You know, he had a head in his hand.
Yeah.
I mean, the imagery they used was cool, but yeah, they could have just tacked that a second and a half of that one more image in there. You know.
Yeah. So now we'll get to, to more positive stuff. I agree with you. I love the way the Scarecrow is used in this. I love the design. He's awesome, and I like how much he gets to do. You guys know I'm a huge Scarecrow fan. I love the character. Scarecrow, I feel like, is having a moment in Batman Dumb right now. Like, the current ongoing comics is this huge Scarecrow event, and it's actually really good, in my opinion. I know not everybody shares that opinion, but I think it's really good.
I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. I'm way behind on reading, and I haven't been motivated to do so, but I do have the issue sitting on my table up there.
Yeah, it's the Fear State is the name of the event, and it's really good. So it's like this big Scarecrow event that's happening in the comics. He gets a featured spot in this movie more so than I think anyone other than maybe Two-Face.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
And, and then obviously he was the big bad in Titan season 3, which we'll talk about another time. Whether or not you like that, he's in there. So I do like that right now Scarecrow's having, is getting a lot of attention because I love the character, and I really like him here. I like the animation. I like the design. I like what he's up to. The sequence is super cool. So I'd still much rather them do what they did than completely, steer away from it the way they did in the finale. So I really like this stuff. And I even liked when he teamed up with the Mad Hatter. That's kind of a weird pairing, but it worked surprisingly well.
Do you happen to, since we're all on here and the discussion we had earlier, y'all recognize who was the voice of Mad Hatter?
Yeah, Bender.
Yes. That's awesome.
It even sounded like Bender singing.
I had to look it up. I was like, this guy sounds familiar. Why do I know this voice? And I looked it up with John DiMaggio. I was like, oh, hell yes. I love this guy.
Yep. The brilliant John DiMaggio. So cool. And Mad Hatter
on an episode. Zachary Levi used to do this show on, I think it was Sci-Fi or maybe Comedy Central. It was called Geeks Who Drink. And he was a great host for the show. And it was just a bunch of geeky people standing around drinking and playing like trivia stuff. And John DiMaggio was on one of the teams one time. That guy is so great. If you can find episodes of it, I think there was only like maybe 15 or 20 episodes total of that show. If you can find it anywhere, watch it. It's a good time.
No, he's great and super fun. But that, you mentioned earlier, Jamie, that you thought some of the villains, they were just extended cameos. And I think that's accurate, but I don't mind that.
And that's the way it was in the book.
Yeah,
too. So
I like
that.
that.
Like mad at it, but like Poison Ivy should have been like an important piece of the way that they were presenting this. And she was barely allowed to talk. And Katie Sackhoff was voicing her. I'm a fan of Katie Sackhoff. I think she's great. She just wasn't given a lot to do. And it's not like there wasn't room in 3 hours of run time to develop this in favor of less quiet moments with a mobster. And I know I'm going to keep going back to that, but I was just a little disappointed in that,
I liked Poison Ivy a lot in this. I thought she was great. I liked the design. I do like that she
looked great. And,
yeah.
The stuff that she was doing in the, controlling the plants like she often does, nothing was wrong with her. I feel like she could have been more of a character instead of an action set piece,
Yeah. But that's what I was going to say. I really liked the action sequence that followed where and then this is weird, going back to talking about what we liked about Catwoman, is I loved that Catwoman was always looking out for Batman, even from the shadows, to the point where she knew something was up, she knew something was wrong, and so she's the one who intervenes and takes on Poison Ivy. I thought that action scene was awesome.
It was really good.
Yeah, so I really like that.
One of the best in the movie.
Yeah. And then the finale, even though we didn't get the trick-or-treat moment, which but I loved the villain's raid on the Falcones. I thought that was a great sequence as well. So Batman and Catwoman versus the rest of the rogues, I thought that was awesome.
No, it was certainly compelling and a good time. I don't really have any issue to speak of with that.
Mm-hmm. So there was still lots of good stuff. And then there is a great moment, and it's been a while since I've read the book too. I did not read the book in preparation for this episode because it feels like a double-edged sword, is you don't want to spend the whole time going, well, in the book, because might as well just invite Jeremy Lloyd. Like,
I mean, you just said what we were all thinking. I just.
So I don't want to do that. And also I do want to judge the movie as a movie and not just as an adaptation. So I didn't read the book also because of timing, but I don't remember if the scene was in the book. And if it was, I don't remember it, but I love the scene where they do a thing where the Waynes aren't as squeaky clean as everyone thought, but they don't go as far as the Telltale games of like, Thomas Wayne was corrupt and an SOB and everything, where they did this thing where, the Waynes were good people, but in order to achieve what they thought were good things in Gotham, they made some uneasy alliances with the Falcone family. And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought they did it in just the right way, where it wasn't too much, where you go, oh no, Thomas and Martha were jerks. They weren't. But there's a great scene between Bruce and Alfred where they talk about that. And Bruce is like, why would they do this? Were they, and I think Alfred even said, well, it's to secure their legacy or something. Like there's a whole back and forth, but I think it's a really great scene talking about how they maybe made some not great decisions, but they thought they were doing it for the greater good. And then Alfred said, well, they would be really proud of you because you are their true legacy. And I thought that was an amazing scene between the two of them. I think Alfred's great in this. I do think that Jensen Ackles is great as Batman. But this scene where they really take a moment to take stock of the Waynes and their past, where Bruce, he says, I'm not, I thought I was doing this to honor them, but now I might just be also redeeming them in the process. And that's when Alfred says, well, that's because you're their real legacy. I thought that scene was awesome. And again, I don't remember if it came from the book, but credit to wherever it came from. I thought it was a really awesome, emotional scene that gives a lot of depth to what Batman is trying to achieve in Gotham. I thought that was awesome.
It seems vaguely familiar to me, but it could be that whole Nelson Mandela thing. I don't know.
Right. Right.
To me, that's a really good moment that you could have bounced a better ending off of, in that they show up with the injured kid. Thomas Wayne knows who these people are, who he's dealing with, but he makes a choice to save this kid's life and help these people out, for better or for worse. He knows that in his heart it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Batman, at the end, with Gilda, for better or worse, knows what the right thing to do is and chooses purposely to go against that.
Yeah.
So I hate to take your moment of saying that, that really strong thing and turn it back to another negative, because I do agree it's a great moment in the conversation. And, I like Thomas helping that kid out, even if hesitantly he still makes the right choice. That's all really good and solid. So I'm gonna stop being negative now, because it's not a bad movie. It's not. Just somewhat disappointing in some parts.
So I wanted to call that out too, because it is one of the great character moments, I think, for Bruce. But I think your point is valid still, and how that could have then fed into the ending with Gilda.
Yeah, that's a missed opportunity.
If somebody someday would just get around to giving Batman a damn internal monologue on a screen, I mean, it would go so far as to say, in these moments where he's, my father made a choice, now I have to make a choice, and stuff like that. I just think, why is that so avoided? Like, even in the story where the internal monologue would have served him best, like, the only gripe I have in the world about the Dark Knight Returns movie is that internal monologue is missing. And I've read the story enough times, I can fill most of it in for myself, but I just think it would have been better if they would have had it there. And in moments like in this movie, as quiet as it is, it's a perfect opportunity to have that in there, but people refuse to do it. I don't know if they think it's a bad storytelling crutch, or they just don't know how to do it, or what it is, but it just feels like an utter refusal by anybody to make that presentation, and I'm kind of sad about it. As I said before, for all my gripes I may have about what I see from this Batman movie coming out next year so far, if there's an internal monologue for Batman in this movie, I'm forgiving a lot of shit right then and there.
I do think that the internal monologue, I think you said it, is that a lot of times it can be a storytelling crutch, because there have been a lot of very clumsy, really bad uses of it throughout movies where they just use it to...
Somebody's thinking to themselves Blade Runner, but, I've never minded that.
Yeah, where they just use it to tell you what you're seeing or to fill in gaps and things like that. So I do think that it's a fine line and they have to be very careful with it. I do think there is a way to do it with Batman that would add to it, but you just couldn't overdo it because you don't want him stating the obvious or, Batman's a character of few words. And so if you watch something and it's him talking the whole time over it, I do think there could be too much. So,
That's not unfair. And I think you're right. And I think that actors are given the opportunity to tell stories with their facial expressions and eyes and what have you. And for the most part, I think most of them have done a very good job in doing so. Particularly, I think Keaton and Affleck, I think, do a really good job with that. But at the same time, as a comic book fan and these people wanting to try maybe different things with Batman, I don't know. I wish somebody would try it once and just to see what pans out.
Yeah. No, I think so too. Again, I do think there's a good way to do it. And especially if you are doing a noir Batman, that is such a device of the noir style of filmmaking that it could certainly add to it and be a lot of fun.
Right. You think like Sin City or like Rorschach and Watchmen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, exactly. No, that's a great point.
Not too much.
Rorschach is a great example.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts. It opens that movie so great that you just
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Well, let's give some final thoughts and some letter grades for Batman the Long Halloween Part 2. Randy, go first.
Easy. I'm going to give it a solid B. It easily could have been an A- if there was some music in it. Solid A if Batman turned into Killer.
If he caught the bad guy.
Yeah, all the nitpicks aside, I just don't feel like it's enough to bring down the entertainment value of the movie. I liked all the crime boss stuff going on. I think it really served the story well, and you got to know a lot of characters really well. I feel like the movie could have benefited a little bit from a little more diversity as far as from the crime bosses and stuff like that, because I had a hard time telling everybody apart for a little bit. But once the movie got rolling, I was used to it. But yeah, solid B for me. I'll return to it, and I'm sure I'll watch it again sometime. And I look forward to seeing if they have anything else in this world. So, yeah.
All right, nice. I like that. I'm glad you agree with me about the music, because when I said that about the first one, I did get some people who were like, "Oh no, it's better this way," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, so I'm glad to hear that there's people on both sides, because, yeah, that is for me one of the biggest drawbacks here. Jamie, what about you?
For anybody that's listened to me for any amount of time, you know that my chief things that I like when I go into a film or TV show or comic book or anything is entertainment value and characters and the character development and being good, strong, solid, well-developed characters. In both cases, I think this one comes up just a little bit short. Not so much that I think it really batters my opinion of the film, but enough to be mildly disappointing. The stylistic aesthetic of this, I think, is fantastic. I love it. I think the animation is excellent. I think the character designs are excellent. The backgrounds, the cars, the old-timey, ambiguous time era for it. A lot of that really feels Batman the Animated Series to me, and I like that. That feels like a good solid nod to them, and nothing wrong with that. I think it's a good enough choice. There were a lot of decisions made to vary from what was going on in the book to here. There's nothing wrong with that, folks. It either works for you or it doesn't. And I know a lot of people I've been seeing for a while had some really downturned opinions of how this panned out at the end. They didn't care for the choices that were made. I didn't necessarily either, but I'm not getting the torches and pitchforks over it. I just think maybe a couple of choices could have been tweaked to improve what was done. But I'm no writer. I can't even tell you what those would have been. I think they probably swung for a base hit and missed. You know, it's not even like they were swinging for a home run. They just were swinging for a base hit, and they whiffed on it. Again, I feel like I'm being harsher on this than I really intend to be. Would I watch this again? Yeah, probably. I probably owe it to watch it again to see if I can get my opinion up or down of it overall. I'm not in a hurry to do it, though. I mean, there's so many other things that I think have more entertainment value or better character development or better writing. But, I mean, all said and done, so I don't get to really ramble. I really think I'm at a B- with this one.
Okay. I mean, I think we're all in the same neighborhood here. I do really like it, and I think, again, the frustration more than anything is just that it's really good, and it's just shy of being great, and it wouldn't have been that hard to push it a little further to make it great. That ending, Randy, I loved what you said earlier on about after Batman's conversation with Gilda, if he had just walked up those stairs and opened the door, and Gordon was standing there, that's all you needed, right? To go, okay, like, he's sympathetic, but justice still has to be done. It would have been very simple, and I think it would have made a huge difference. And then just the smaller things, a little more music, continue the holidays format through the whole thing, things like that. Taking some of those splash page moments and really making them bigger moments in the movie. I think all that was all you really needed to make this truly great. But as it is, it's very good. I really do like it. I love the animation. I love the character designs. I love the use of the characters. I don't have the same issue as Jamie about, certain ones being underserved, because you're using so many of them, they can't all be out in the forefront. So I like how many of those characters make an appearance and are part of the story without it revolving around them. I think that's really fun. There's some great character moments. I like in part one how Batman has this arc of being like, oh, I also need to be a better detective. That is something I wasn't foreseeing. I like that. And then here, grappling with the past with his parents and how he can do better himself. There's a lot of great things here, and there's a lot to like. And as we said, really great performances by Jensen Ackles as Batman, Josh Duhamel as Two-Face, and Naya Rivera as Catwoman. All three of those characters are really fantastic here. So there is a lot to like, and I do like it. I just wish they had stuck the landing a little better, and then I think it would have worked better as a whole. But as for the letter grade, I think I gave part one an A-, if I remember correctly, and here I wish I could give it that high, but for me, I'm where you are, Randy. I'm just at a big solid B, so it's still good. It just could have been a little bit better.
That's right. Make me the bad guy. That's all right. I'm cool.
You're used to it.
Yeah.
You're not on Twitter. You'll never hear about it. You won't know. So,
Loey 007. Send it all there.
Yep. All complaints to Loey 007. Anyway, so there you go. 2 B's and a B-. But I'm honestly, Jamie, that's not that far off.
No, it's not.
And this is one I will happily revisit in the future. I did enjoy it enough that I think it's really good. I don't think the ending is nearly as offensive as the ending of Hush, for what it's worth.
I don't think I'm going to disagree with that.
That was just, what are you guys smoking? But
I will watch this again with minimal fuss. I'm not going to actively avoid it. There's just a lot of other things I would choose to watch before it.
Yeah.
Well,
fair.
Andy, the reason that you lost your April Fool's scene in this movie is because the creators are like, oh, they don't like Riddler. We're not going to put him there.
Oh, geez. So, all right. Long Halloween parts 1 and 2, a bit of a mixed bag, but still, I think a strong recommendation. I still think of the animated adaptations, it's one of the better ones. Not as good as The Dark Knight Returns, but it's still pretty darn good. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it too.
To be fair, nothing's as good as Dark Knight Returns.
Well, I mean, then there's that. So here's what's strange is on the last episode, we did a clean out of the Wayne Manor mailbox. We answered everybody's emails. And so we only have one email since that episode, which is crazy. Everybody gave us a little bit of a break. So it is a fun one that I thought would be a fun little chat. So I thought we would answer this to wrap up the episode. This is from our old pal Tom Fallows. We always know we can hear from him, and he's thrown out an interesting question. He says, "Hey guys, I hope you're well. Thanks for all the great shows. I won't ask any questions regarding the Batman, as I feel you guys have gone over that the past few episodes. But as a fun question, carrying over from the previous question about the SNL cast, I was wondering, if they were to reboot the 60s Batman show, what actors would you have guest star as members of the Rogues Gallery? As an added bonus, who would play the dynamic duo themselves? Thanks, Tom." So this is fun, and I feel like we might have mentioned this in the past, or I feel like we've had a similar conversation, but if we were to do Batman 66 now, a campy comedic version now, who were the big stars we would get to play the parts?
So we're not restricted to the 60s time era. We can go with modern day cast.
No, I think that's the idea, is
Okay,
modern
okay.
day. You're going to do it.
All right.
So, I mean, we can all just start thinking about it. I think that, he was out there as Batman for the longest time, but I think as a comedic Batman, he could be really funny, and that's John Hamm.
Oh, yeah.
Because John Hamm, he loves doing goofy shit. Like that, he shows up on SNL every other week just because he's bored. So I think he would have a blast doing the straight man, Adam West, Batman, but amongst all the goofiness. I think he would be really fun.
I love that that's your answer. And let me tell you why. Because he was one of my two choices and I didn't want to have to pick.
Oh, great. Well, then who's the other one?
I'm not going to remember his name. The guy from Modern Family. Ty.
Oh, Ty Burrell?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be great.
I love that guy. He cracks me up. I think he's an absolute blast, and I think he would have a blast in that part.
Yeah.
The only reason I might lean more toward Ham than him is I think Ham is a little bit more of a physical presence, if you will, like just, bigger and bulkier or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I could be even wrong about that. I don't know. I feel like Ham's a bigger guy than him.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't know how important that would be doing a campy style Batman show.
Yeah.
But it's not like Adam West was a little tiny guy either. He was a pretty big dude.
Yeah. Randy, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would probably throw Jason Sudeikis in the Batman role.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Definitely not a big, bulky guy, but I think he could pull off that type of physical humor, and I think he'd come across as a good Batman.
No, that totally works. Robin, I'm having a tougher time. I'm trying to think of someone younger but really funny.
I got one.
Okay.
Asher Angel.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, then
I'll spit that out before I forgot it.
No, that's good. I'll just piggyback on that then and say Jack Dylan Grazer. So we'll have all of Shazam covered.
I actually want to address the Sudeikis thing for a second because I would want that to happen, but only if he was playing Batman as Ted Lasso.
Oh, okay.
Well, you'd need the mustache, that's for sure.
Andy, are you watching Ted Lasso yet?
I still haven't, no.
Randy, do you watch Ted Lasso?
Love it. Favorite show on TV.
It's the best show going. Listen, you know how my wife hates everything, right? And not only does my wife hate everything, she's not real keen on repeat viewings. She's watched that entire damn series 3 times already.
Wow.
Yeah, I watched the first season 3 or 4 times. It's that good.
And Andy, when you finally get around to watch it, just know that Roy Kent is my spirit animal.
Okay. Well,
you'll know when you see it.
All right. I'll get to it.
Other than the money and the physique and all that other stuff, Roy and I are the same person.
Okay.
Anyhow, Robin. I have a hard time picking this because I don't know somebody that would really be young enough, but it's not like Burt Ward was exactly 14 when he was playing the role either. So I don't know the young up-and-comers as well as I should. I'm a grumpy old man. I feel like something really dumb like Michael, what's
Sarah?
Yes, thank you.
I am.
He's
played Robin once.
Yeah. My head's going to him or Jonah Hill or somebody like that, just because it would be kooky. Or even, what's his name? Kenan Thompson. Is that the one on Saturday Night Live these days?
Yeah.
Yep.
He's a funny guy. I mean, putting somebody again, all these are probably too old, quote, for that part, but they just seem to work for me, doing a campy comedic style of Batman and Robin.
I mean, there could be something very funny about casting an actor almost the same age as Batman as Robin. It'd be like the Schumacher films all over again. But just like lean into it. Like he's always like Robin's always got a 5 o'clock shadow or something.
Right.
But they talk to him like he's 14, like he can't drive and stuff like that. Okay, so for villains, I mean, this is another one of those where it's probably better if we had time to prepare, but we didn't. I'm thinking the Joker, and I'm thinking Cesar Romero. He's Latin, he's fabulous, he has a mustache. I feel like Oscar Isaac, but he has to grow a mustache and then cover it with white paint.
That's perfect.
I ain't even mad at this. I ain't even mad at it.
He also seems like that very serious actor who would take on this role that you're questioning why he took it.
And would
Cesar
just have
Romero.
the best time ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac strikes me as that type of dude. I could see that working pretty well, actually. You know what? I'm going to just go crazy just because it's one of those things that we keep talking about. What if it would have happened, and it just never did. And this might be a decent opportunity, even though the rigor mortis is bloody well set in at this point. But I'm going to say Willem Dafoe.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he just has that look. I mean, it's
people,
a good opportunity.
fans are still saying he should be the Joker in the Batman universe. And I'm like, guys, the ship is sailed.
He's pushing 70, isn't he?
Yeah.
So, this role wouldn't be particularly physically demanding. So, I mean, that would be the best opportunity to do it, even though we're pulling all this out of fantasy realm here.
Yeah. It's true, but he has to grow a mustache. That's the rule.
I saw somebody the other day that had a smile, and I looked at the smile and I thought, well, there's a good Joker smile if I ever saw it, and damned if I can remember who it was.
I will throw out the Riddler because this was someone I wanted for the movies, and that's not happened and will never happen. So maybe I can get him here and PH.
Oh yeah.
Tough to go wrong with that.
Yeah.
That kind of charisma, he would nail it.
He was done dirty. He would have been a perfect big screen one, but if he can't do that for the 66 revival, he would also have a hoot.
You feel like the phone call would be about 10 seconds long to get him to say yes to this.
Oh,
too,
God.
don't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, we have a part for you. You want to play the Yes.
Yes, I do.
I can't even come up with a better Riddler, so I'm not even going to try.
If I'm pulling from the SNL cast, I would probably do Pete Davidson. I'm not a fan of him personally, but
there's a Riddler I want to punch.
Right?
All right. Penguin.
If I may, King Tut, Seth Rogen.
Oh, yeah, totally. I was trying to think of a penguin.
I liked
There's
Kenan
Jonah
Thompson.
Hill. There's my Jonah Hill choice right there.
Yeah, you used Jonah Hill for that. I mean, he apparently was almost that in the Batman.
Or Josh Gad.
Oh, Josh Gad. Yep, Josh Gad.
That's the right answer.
I was never on board with him for the movie, but for this, he'd be perfect. He'd be so much fun.
I feel like we're just filling in blanks of people who have been suggested in some way or another in the past but didn't get the opportunity.
Well, that's what happens when you're doing it off the top of your head. Catwoman. What about a cat?
We're going to call this Batman the Cleanup.
I say you bring Halle Berry back as Catwoman.
Well, we can cast 3 Catwomen, can't we?
That's true. We can have 3.
He raises a valid point there. Michelle Pfeiffer, Halle Berry, and I don't know.
Kate McKinnon would kill it as Catwoman.
Okay. All right.
You have Andy's attention, but you just lost mine. I'm not a big fan.
Win some, you lose some.
Well, since you made me think of Ghostbusters, which made me think of Melissa McCarthy could be Senora Lola Lasagna. And if you remember that episode, you get bonus points.
That's beyond me.
No? Senora Lola Lasagna?
Lost me.
Oh, guys. She was played by Ethel Merman.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, in the
There's a
66
blast
show.
from the past.
Yep, she was played by Ethel Merman, and she teamed up with the Penguin.
And that name doesn't sound at all like she was playing some kind of stereotypical Italian character.
She was really just Ethel Merman. It was literally.
Well, in that case,
they were just like,
did she break out
up
into
a
a
name.
musical number?
I don't think so. I don't think there was any singing in that episode.
How are you going to call Ethel Merman and not have her sing? Come on, now.
I know. I
Christ,
could
she
be
even
wrong.
sang an Airplane, for crying out loud.
Oh man, who else? Who else do we got?
For villains or for the third Catwoman?
Any of the above?
Egghead.
Oh God, Egghead. Yes,
I'm trying to think of villains that were almost specific to the show or more prevalent.
that's a good call. I mean, I think everybody would think Bill Hader because he used to do the Vincent Price thing on SNL.
Oh, perfect. Well done. Thank you.
Can't beat that one.
Bookworm.
I'll throw this one out there just because it's totally insane. But if we're not doing Bill Hader, because I feel like that's an easy call, go with me now.
Easy doesn't mean it's not right.
That's true. Ian McKellen as Egghead. Because I was trying to think of someone as old and fabulous, and Ian McKellen is old and fabulous.
I can't not see it now. Jesus, I have a war in my head between those two.
You could also cast 3 Mr. Freezes because there were just as many of them as there were Catwoman, but
Yeah.
I mean, since I can't seem to get it what I want in the live action films with it, I'm gonna throw the idea out here because this cat plays with drama and comedy equally as well as one another, but I don't think he gets quite as much recognition these days for his comedic chops, even though he was brilliant on a sitcom. Mr. Freeze should be Bryan Cranston.
oh, okay. Yeah.
He was hysterical on that show. Malcolm in the Middle. You guys ever watch
I
it?
never really watched it. It was never my thing. But
The later
watched
seasons
it.
got
Yep.
really silly. Like once the oldest kid was, kind of a season or two into the military school thing, it kind of went off the rails. But the first couple seasons of that show were just brilliant.
well, how
In
about
no small part to Cranston and Jane Kasmerick.
all right. I'm going to throw this out there. This is random, but hey, what the hell? Just for funsies. Another Mr. Freeze option. Because someone who's super funny, deadpan, and Mr. Freeze got to be deadpan. Sorry, Arnold, you got to be. Eugene Levy.
It's so weird. I think it's almost perfect.
Would be fun.
Now, do we want to stick with villains that were on the show, or do we want to play with some villains that never quite made it there?
I don't know. Whatever you want.
All right. Bane, Danny Trejo, just because.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful.
That would be amazing. I'm all for that. Oh, I just thought of a better Robin. Darren Criss.
Wasn't he one of your suggestions for Nightwing?
He was one of my Nightwing suggestions, but he's also older, but he's also funny. And you said Danny Trejo. I thought of Muppets Haunted Mansion. I thought of Darren Criss. I was like, he could actually be a funny Robin opposite whoever, is Batman.
You said Muppets Haunted Mansion. I love that movie.
It was fun.
I loved it.
Well, and then you can make Will Arnett Batman. Just bring Lego Batman to life.
I'm okay with it.
Oh, go ahead.
I've got Margo Martindale as Miss Harriet.
Who's that?
Margo Martindale?
Yeah, who's that?
I don't know the name.
She was in The Rocketeer. She was.
Oh, I already know who you're talking about. She owned the diner in The Rocketeer.
August Clowney. What is that called? Yeah. Yep, it's her.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Totally. Absolutely. Here's a random one, but I think it could be again funny. Jennifer Aniston as Poison Ivy.
Only if she played it like Rachel. Yeah.
Who else?
Courtney Cox. I guess there's your third Catwoman choice. Courtney Cox.
Courtney Cox, I love you. You're so hot on that show.
See, now you got me tracking back now. All the Friends cast I got to plug in here. Matthew Perry is the Riddler. I would watch that.
Yep.
Could I be any more puzzling to you people?
So do you remember Louis the Lilac?
Oh.
Louis the Lilac, that was Milton Berle. And so I was trying to think of someone who could rock the lavender suit, and I thought of Rupert Everett.
Oh God, whatever happened to that guy?
I know,
feel
he
like
kind of
was
went
everywhere in the late
quiet.
90s
Yeah,
and just poof.
kind of went quiet. But I was like, I feel like he would rock
Literally,
it.
the last thing I could remember him in was he was one of the voices of one of the foxes, I think, in the Chronicles of Narnia movie.
I feel like he still works, but I'm
hope
not
so,
sure.
because that guy was great.
Yeah.
He's in that movie that my wife really likes with Julia Roberts. That I
Right.
don't ever watch
Right.
at all, even though it's on my shelf.
Sure.
Ever. Yeah.
How about Batgirl? The Yvonne Craig Batgirl?
Oh, yeah.
Darcy Carden.
Who's that?
I don't know that name.
Janet from Good Place.
I don't watch that show. Don't know her.
I love A Good Place. Oh, okay, yeah. I'd be down with that.
I'm not going to remember the girl's name, but she was on. She was in the Evil Dead remake. Redhead.
Yes, Jane Levy?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
She used to be on a sitcom that was pretty good with. Oh God, what's her name? She used to be on Second City. Good-looking blonde, big mouth.
Oh, Suburbia, right?
Yes.
That was hilarious, yeah.
That was a good show.
Okay, so you said A Good Place. It made me think of Kristen Bell. She could be Harley Quinn.
Oh yeah.
She would be a phenomenal Harley. Like at some point, didn't she audition for it or try to?
I think I don't know if it was ever real, but I know that she was a fan cast for a while. But again, I think she would do even better in a Batman 66 Harley, you know?
Oh yeah, because she's so good at comedy. Like,
yeah.
I like her as an actress anyway, but like I was just watching Fanboys this morning, man. She's so good in that.
She's so funny.
I forgot she was in that.
Yeah, she's so good in it.
Most people forgot that movie exists. I think I watch that movie 3 or 4 times a year. I just like when I need something that just centers me and makes me feel good about life, I watch that movie. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's on my shelf
Dan
somewhere.
Fogler from there could also be a good Penguin.
Oh God,
yes.
yes.
He's so funny. I love that guy.
He is so awesome in everything he does, but like the uncle on Goldberg.
Oh my God, Uncle Marvin. Oh, he's the best.
He's a great actor though.
He's
he played
so funny.
Hitchcock at one point even.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember what the movie was called because there was like 2 or 3 Hitchcock movies that all came out like right around the same time.
Yeah.
He was in one of them.
Yeah.
Because Hopkins played one, he played one.
And Toby Jones
can't
played
remember.
one.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there was 3 of them.
I hated that movie, but
Okay, I knew there was one that was really kind of down on Hitch.
it was the Toby Jones one. Is they made him out to be like a complete SOB. And maybe it's true. It just seemed so harsh. It seemed like character assassination more than a movie.
Yeah, I never saw that one.
Yeah.
I saw the Hopkins one.
The Hopkins one was really good because they didn't shy away from that, but it wasn't as bad, you know?
It wasn't what defined him.
Sure. I just had a thought for a Catwoman, Idina Menzel.
Oh,
yeah.
If you would have said Adele Dazeem, I would have known who you were talking about.
Well, you know, same difference.
I like Kevin Smith for the Clock King.
I'd watch the hell out of that.
I would watch that.
Yep. I'm down with that. Who else?
I keep trying to think of ones that weren't on the show, but I can't think of any that I have a ready good answer for.
I know. Trying to think of like a bookworm.
That's a tough call.
I know. I like the bookworm, but I'm trying to think of like someone like super nerdy.
Who played him in the 66?
That was Roddy McDowell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I love Roddy McDowell. The bookworm is so random, but he's fun. I'm just trying to think of who in modern times would be a good bookworm.
I got Andy Serkis. They
Sure.
both played apes. They both get to play bookworm.
That's true. He can play anything.
For some reason, he said Andy Serkis, and my mind processed Andy Dick, and I was like, no. Then I was like, oh, Serkis, duh. Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, I don't have a better one, but that's who I was trying to figure out as we're chatting. Is I'm like, who would be a good, and it'll come to me later, and I'll go, oh, I should have said that.
That's the problem. I mean, if you'd have gave me like a day's notice, I could have made a list.
I know.
But no.
Yeah.
You got to make me do thinking on the spot. I'm not.
Sorry.
I think we could have gotten through the first season with our cast.
That's true. It's
Neil
not bad.
Flynn. Go with me.
Oh.
Here. Neil Flynn as Solomon Grundy.
Oh, okay.
I love Neil Flynn. He's a comedic genius. He does not get the recognition he deserves for his off-the-cuff humor, but that guy is brilliant at comedy.
Is that the janitor?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
That is the janitor.
And also the dad from The Middle.
My God.
And also the dad in Mean Girls, which is
Yeah.
one of the comedy greats of all time.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's not bad, guys. Off the cuff. Oh, here we go. Here, Bookworm, Martin Short. Boom.
Oh, nice.
Are you watching Only Murders in the Building?
Not yet.
Okay.
Missing out.
I know. There's too many shows.
There is.
Too many. We're behind on
And
everything.
I have the problem of, there's new episodes of this to watch. Okay, I'll only watch 2 episodes of Game of Thrones today. And I feel like once I'm done with so I'm like almost to season 7 of my Game of Thrones rewatch, and I feel like as soon as that's done, I'm going to do something dumb, like instead of going and watching Titans and Doom Patrol and all these other things, I'm probably going to go back and Seinfeld. I haven't watched that in a minute.
Oh God. It's sometimes you want to go back to the comforting old standbys.
Right.
I'll throw out one last King Tut. John Goodman.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
I love John Goodman.
Who doesn't love John Goodman? He's a national treasure.
Do you watch The Connors?
I haven't. I watched the first couple, and then I just lost track of it. I've been meaning to go back to it because I do love them. So yeah, one of these days.
Well, I don't know how deep you got into it or when she actually came in, but obviously, spoilers. The Connors takes place after Roseanne dies because they had to kill off her character because she turned out to be a real piece of work in real life that Disney wanted nothing to do with, understandably.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to sink the show because it was, still had traction and popularity and people liked revisiting the characters. And John Goodman has been on point with the show. Like, he's showing his age and he just doesn't deliver some of his lines with the gusto like he used to, but he's so putting in all the effort he can. Mm-hmm. And Katie Seagal is playing his newer love interest.
Katie Seagal's in it?
Yes.
You just piqued my interest.
Now she's only minimally involved through the first couple of seasons, but like right now she's becoming a much more present character regular. Mm-hmm. And man, for any age she looks great, but for her age she looks amazing.
She's amazing. We could find a spot for her too. Katie Seagal as Zelda the Great.
I'm on board with
just to get her in there.
She's fantastic.
Sweet. Well, you just gave me another reason to go back to it. All right. Well, we appreciate the question, Tom, and I think we came up with some pretty good options off the cuff. Not bad. Respectable. But anyway, that's where we will wrap it up. We don't have any other emails, which is, it just feels kind of nice and freeing. But if you do have an email or a question for us, you can send that to holybatcast@rf4rm.com. Quick word of warning, I am traveling for Thanksgiving, so we're taking next week off. So in the meantime, we hope you guys have a very safe and wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope someone brings you a plate, just like Batman and Solomon Grundy. But that's where we're going to wrap up this episode.
If you're bringing me a plate, bring me several because I'm ready to eat.
Okay, great. Randy, thanks for joining us. It was great having you.
Thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate it.
Of course. If you want to tell people where they can find you online.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Randy Rat, RandyRat, or I'm floating around the Real Fans page, I guess.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, it was awesome having you. Wishing you guys the best. Stay warm up there in Wisconsin.
Yeah, we'll try. We'll do our best.
Jamie, they can't find you.
No, I'm untraceable.
Yeah, they can't see you. You're like John Cena.
I'm like John Cena.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you guys stay tuned to this show and please rewind and Jamie will pop up. You will keep track of him. Well, I already told you guys where to follow me, so you can give me a follow if you like. If not, no worries. But thank you for downloading the show. We do appreciate you joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode, and please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Visit holybatcast.com or find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, Holy BatCast. If you've got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, again, that email is holybatcast@rf4rm.com. Our theme music was created by Gaurav Venkateswar. You can find his awesome work at gvtunes.com. But that'll do it. On behalf of Randy and Jamie, I've been Andy. We will see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Holy BatCast is not affiliated with Warner Brothers or DC Entertainment. The views and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
Harvey? Not anymore.
It had to be done.
You will never convince me of that.
There won't be any judges to be bribed. No witnesses to disappear. The Roman is dead and Two-Face killed him. The long Halloween is over.
Oh, I love Dick. Oh, I love Dick. Oh, I love Dick. Dick.